Wow. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. This was actually an unexpected game I would really enjoy. I'm not kidding when I say that, because I had zero expectations of this game, and it's mainly due to the fact I'm not a big Zelda fan. I'm very casual with the Zelda series. I definitely played the old titles back then. For the most part, I was just really looking forward to be playing other titles coming out this year, such as the new Spider-Man 2 coming out very soon at the fall, and within June we're going to be having Final Fantasy 16, which is my highly anticipated game of all time, and there may be other game releases coming to the holidays, maybe the Final Fantasy 7 Remake Part 2 coming out in December. I really do hate to admit this, but I was definitely one of those people who did not want to pay the $70 for another quote-unquote Breath of the Wild, thinking it would be sort of the same game. I sort of took a chance on it for this month because I was like, I sort of just want to play a new game. It has been a while since I played Zelda, and I definitely did love Breath of the Wild. I think Breath of the Wild was one of the most innovative game experiences for the open world genre, and I was really wondering how Tears of the Kingdom will really surpass Breath of the Wild, because I feel like just trying to make a whole different game compared to Breath of the Wild is something really hard to do because of how much popularity it built, how much great quality of experiences that you created for the players. How can you give a replication of that? How can you give a similar experience to Tears of the Kingdom? And my god, Nintendo definitely answered back with this title, because the amount of changes that they actually did compared to Breath of the Wild, the way their maps are designed, the way they're open world, just the whole scale of things of this game is just much bigger than Breath of the Wild. I didn't think they would actually really change a lot of these things up. This game is the real definition of going beyond your limits. Nintendo was like, yo, I don't even care if the Switch dies. We're making this game happen, and it's gonna work somehow, some way, and it's still gonna look great. And they actually managed to do that. I'm never quick to say, hey, this game is gonna definitely be Game of the Year, or I'm not the type to really praise a game right off the bat. But from the 3 days I've been playing of this game, and again, I haven't completed it, I felt like I barely progressed through the game. There just seems like there's tons of content to do within this game. I would be surprised if this game doesn't win to be the Game of the Year. Before we hop into this rant, my discussion of Tears of the Kingdom, because I feel like I have a lot to say, but I'll do my best to shorten a lot of the things I have to say, because there's just a lot that I've experienced within the past 3 days, and it's been absolutely lovely. It's been crazy. There's just a lot of great moments in Tears of the Kingdom, and it's just so hard to really explain every single moment. And again, that's how big this game is, this scale of things you could just experience. But anyway, I haven't completed the game. Expect minor spoilers regardless, because I'll be showcasing certain things that you may or may not see. It's hard to put out a video with Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom because every moment could be a spoiler because everyone's playthrough is different, and that's the beauty of these games. But heads up is that you may spoil yourself. I don't know what you would consider spoilers, but I'll do my best not to show any like big spoiler content or show lore or show any sort of story. So I'm just gonna show a lot of gameplay of myself just exploring around the lands of Hyrule. Where do I even begin on talking about this game? Since I said there's just so much to talk about, I guess I'm gonna start out with what I'm really impressed about. It's the fact that they dialed down on innovation once again. And this is why I love Nintendo. Love them or hate them, I always respected Nintendo when they create their games. They make such innovative games within the gaming industry. And it's why, well, probably you guys may not know this, I was a big Nintendo kid back in the day. Growing up in my childhood, every console, every game that I owned was like Nintendo exclusives or like Nintendo consoles or even their portable consoles. I did not move on from Nintendo until maybe like 2007 or 2008, and that's when I transitioned on having an Xbox. But I'm back with my Nintendo roots because I miss playing some Nintendo games, and playing Tears of the Kingdom not only just gives me a such lovey-dovey feeling for gaming again, but it also just gives a nostalgic feeling of why I love a lot of Nintendo games. There's a lot of world building. Exploration is obviously one of the big core game designs that they did. So every time you're exploring, you are progressing through the game, whether or not it seems like it. And I really love how redesigned the map, because certain things are actually different, because over time a lot of things has happened. I'm not gonna again try to talk about certain things, but it's the fact that they give another refreshing feeling other than it being a Breath of the Wild clone for $70. And when I say that they dial down on innovation, creativity is one of their core game philosophies that they implemented in their game design, and they truly want you to experience creativity, whether you are in battle, whether you are creating, building certain things, and it's also how you can approach these levels, these dungeons, with the tools or abilities given to you. And that's another layer of discussion just to talk about. But to summarize it, instead of using I think from Breath of the Wild, it was a Sheikah Slate and it had these abilities. So instead of using the Sheikah Slate abilities, with Link's new arm, he has 5 new abilities in this game, and they all play a bit differently compared to the Sheikah Slate abilities. They are similar, but they do have different traits when it comes to Tears of the Kingdom. So the first ability, which is the go-to and main ability you would be using throughout the whole entire game, is Ultra Hand. Ultra Hand is the ability where you're able to create and build many things in the game, whether it's transportation or structures, you name it, you could literally build anything. And why I admire this certain mechanic in this game so much, and just applaud the developers for it, is because this is one of their first many openings for players to be creative, express themselves, how they are able to approach these levels in the game, their challenges, their shrines, their puzzles. Using Ultra Hand is the go-to, where you're able to create and have these solutions with the certain things that you have built in the game. So again, Ultra Hand, one of the best mechanics in the game, because it's one of the main ones, or there's a lot of things just built around Ultra Hand. The second one is Fuse. Fuse is a very unique one, and I think it's one of the most underrated things that people are underutilizing. And fuse is a ability from the hand where you're able to combine materials and weapons together, or you could combine other weapons with each other, or combine devices. There's so many variations and so many combinations that you could create for your weapons, or you could even make your weapons into tools. Like, someone fused a rocket with a shield and they were able to fly across the map with it. And I thought that was one of the most brilliant things ever, and I would never ever thought about that because I thought the jet would make me lose control or damage me somehow, some way. It's the fact that this game really encourages you to be curious and build all these sort of things that you can do. This mechanic is also very similar to how Dead Rising played like. If you guys don't know what Dead Rising is, I'm gonna show certain gameplay in the video. Pretty much Dead Rising is a zombie game made by Capcom. You're stuck in a mall, and what your survival is, you gotta find all these items, and you could create all these you stack up on these items, and you're able to have these different combinations of weapons with the items that you find throughout the mall. And even though it looks completely ridiculous, just like how you can make ridiculous things in Tears of the Kingdom, they could be very, very useful. And that's what I love about these sort of games. It has that video game charm, but it's also super cool to have your creation working in a video game. One of the best satisfying things to have. So we move on to the third ability, which is called Ascend. Ascend is not used from many people because, from what I've read, a lot of people don't really use it a lot. They tend to forget. But Ascend is used for you to reach a certain height in the game, since there is a lot of verticality in this humongous map for Tears of the Kingdom. And why this is one of the most useful abilities, because I know a lot of people don't typically use it, is because it's another alternative way from reaching high ground than climbing or running atop of a hill or something. If there is a platform right above you, why not just use Ascend and go through that, rather than making the effort of running around and climbing to that area, then simply just using Ascend. It just makes a lot of things much more easier for Link with its movement. And since I've just pretty much started out with this game, I don't know what are the other little sneaky tricks that you could do. I am interested how people are going to be utilizing Ascend as time moves forward. Now, speaking of time, one of the, I guess I could say, second to last abilities. The fifth ability isn't as useful, but I'm still going to talk about it. But the fourth ability is called Recall. One of the most useful abilities in the game. It's one of my favorite because you could literally manipulate time, and you're able to use it in any sort of scenario. Now, you could use it as transportation, for you to get to places to point A to B, or vice versa, or you could even use it in the battlefield. For example, let's just say an enemy is throwing a gigantic boulder at you. You could literally just freeze time with Recall, rewind a boulder that's about to hit you, and as it's rewinding, it rewinds back to the enemy. It throws back the rock to itself, and it damages the enemy. And I think that is just such a badass thing to add in the game, because when you are fighting so many mobs and you are actually freezing time and multitasking and trying to like crowd control them with using Recall, it's one of the most coolest things to experience in combat. But one of the most useful things as well is using it with structures, with objects, because you could use them as platforms, you could use them as mobility, so you're able to have certain advantages where you're able to use let's just say a concrete floor. You use Ultra Hand, and you simulate how it's a moving platform that's giving you height. You drop it, and even though it's on the floor, use the recall ability, make Link go on top of that concrete floor, and as you rewind time, it's going to rewind where it was originally at, which was in the air, and you're able to again use it to your advantage as a platform to gain height. You could use it basically as a lift. Another way, and another alternative way to use mobility for Link. And that's what I really love of this game, is that there's just so many options as a player in terms of just approaching certain levels in this game, and I completely love it a lot. Another way on using this as well is that, let's say there was a situation where I was doing a shrine and I was getting very curious with how this shrine was, and I ended up trapping myself with the block that's blocking my pathway, and I'm unable to climb or jump higher, and I'm just stuck in the corner. I sort of bugged out the game in a way. Also, I wasn't able to use Ultra Hand because Ultra Hand wasn't able to move the block freely from my path. What I thought to myself, because I didn't want to close the game just yet and reload my save, I was like, wait, I have the ability to rewind time. Maybe this can just undo my mistake. When I rewinded the time, I actually was free from the corner. I was free from being trapped, as I see the structure being rewinded back to the floor, and I was able to get out of there and able to move the block once again. And even if this was intentional or not with this certain bug, I feel like recall is just a way for the devs to prevent bugs. But I mean, in all seriousness, this, like, just having all these abilities in this game with Ultra Hand, with Fuse, with Ascend, and Recall, these are game changing things, and the devs did a great time, did a great job working around many mechanics of these abilities, because they all work well together. They all mix and match well, and there's so many creative things that people do to find solutions with their creations, or how they approach certain levels in the game, how they solve certain shrines, puzzles, everything about this. It's truly a true sandbox Zelda game. There's just so many variations to account for. I didn't know how Nintendo did it. It's honestly crazy to me, because listen, maybe one of these days I did think about being a game designer, and honestly, in a game design standpoint, in order to make this all happen, you would have to account for so many variations, so many scenarios of what these players can potentially do. And somehow Breath of the Wild and now Tears of the Kingdom is able to fully do it and able to just make this all work. They have great details in their game with physics, how it plays well, with the creations that you can do, and how things just operate smoothly in the game, just with the freedom of creativity and how you're able to approach anything in any sort of way. There's no such thing as doing the quote-unquote right way in Breath of the Wild or for Tears of the Kingdom. It's purely all up to you on how you want to solve it. And I really respect developers when they definitely give, and again, this is just incredibly hard for any developer to do. I respect any developer who tries their best to make the most ambitious game as possible, but for the devs that created Tears of the Kingdom, and how mechanically and how it's just designed, and along with its map, of how it just all works together, where everyone could have a completely different experience, and solve things differently compared to others is one of the most fascinating things I've ever seen. I would love to see some sort of research report about this and read it. I would love to see that, or see a documentary of this. It's just those truly remarkable things that you just see in gaming, and I don't think we're really gonna, I don't know. I didn't expect to really see another game like this compared to Breath of the Wild when it was released. So the fact that we have another game, which is the sequel of Breath of the Wild, of it really pushing its boundaries, its limits with the Switch, is insane. But that sort of leads to the next topic of what I really want to talk about, is the new tech that they actually used for Tears of the Kingdom, which is FSR, which is an upscaling technology created by AMD themselves, which helps improve the performance or frame rate for certain titles within the gaming industry. And also FSR renders in-game frames at lower resolution, which is less taxing on the user's hardware, and it tries to increase their resolution time to time. So basically it has dynamic resolution scaling, and there's other technical factors that help run Tears of the Kingdom well from what you guys see on your guys' end. But there is slight problems with FSR, and it is the overall image quality. Even though it's not as drastic compared to Breath of the Wild, it is somewhat taking a toll on how certain things look within the game. And for an example, every time you move the camera, FSR downscales the quality of the image, and it sort of makes it a bit much more blurry because it's downscaling the resolution every time you move the camera. It may be noticeable for certain people who have a keen eye for graphics when it comes to these things, but I guess it's not as a big problem for those who don't notice it. I'm not the best when it comes to describing this certain tech, because I only know the surface level of things. If you want more information, I highly recommend to watch Digital Foundry's video when it comes to FSR in Tears of the Kingdom. I will link it in the description down below, so hopefully you guys could check it out and potentially educate yourself when it comes to this game. But again, overall, I do notice the quality of how it affects my playthrough. I think the game still looks wonderful. Like the way the art style is and the way things are presented to you, it seems like how it always wanted to be presented as. So therefore, it's not as a souring experience, and it's not like I'm dropping so many frames either. I think it's great that Nintendo is utilizing FSR, just new tech, especially tech that prioritizes performance, especially when it's much needed on their hardware that could keep up on modern games. And I really do appreciate that a lot, especially how this is one of those games where it's truly special, and the scale of things, of how you could just do so much and how it just seems endless for Tears of the Kingdom is incredible. The fact that there's no load times skydiving or just going through layers of the map. Like, for example, you could start out all the way up in the sky where the sky islands are, and you could skydive all the way to Hyrule ground and all the way to the underground map. Those 3 layers of maps are humongous. The Sky Island is humongous. There's a lot to discover. Hyrule is the same map from Breath of the Wild, which already by default is like humongous, and they even changed it up, like how things are set up in Hyrule for this game. And then now there's a whole underground map, and there's several underground maps in this game. It's again humongous. So the fact that you're able to skydive all the way from the top of the game and go all the way to the bottom without witnessing any sort of load times. There's barely any load times, by the way, from my experiences. The only time you're gonna go through load times is like when you die, when you load up the game, obviously, or maybe if you're going to a certain cutscene, maybe. Other than that, it's like the game just is seamless and it runs surprisingly well. The game does drop frame rate time to time, but again, I just want to bring this up, and just like everyone else, is that we're just begging Nintendo at this point, please, hopefully in the future, maybe this game could have a remaster on 60 FPS. I know I'm coping, but it would be amazing to have a game like this, because this game truly is a humongous game. For it to be held back by, you could debate, lower end hardware, it just sucks to see games like this be downscaled instead of them seeing at their full potential. Obviously, even though Tears of the Kingdom is going beyond limits of the game itself, along technically with its Switch, it is still held back because we're not truly seeing everything of what the game could actually offer visually. I would love to hear your guys's certain critiques when it comes to performances. I'm really curious how everyone's feeling about performance as of now, because there are definitely moments in the game, especially when there's a lot of visual effects on screen, the game kind of freaks out and it starts to be on like 20, or not really 20 frames, maybe like 25 frames, maybe 23, but it recovers very quickly, or not very quickly, but you know, again, it's not as a souring experience to where, oh, the game is dead, or like the game is dying on the Switch, but it's still manageable where I'm still able to play completely fine. But I wonder if it happens to you guys as well, so comment down below. But I guess this is a good transition to somewhat conclude it and just kind of list down the pros and cons I have with the game. And I guess we could just start out with the negatives, and like what I just mentioned before is just performance. I just want better performance for this game. This game is incredibly fun, and it would be honestly a 10 out of 10. And again, I don't put these games on a whole platform above me, but how this game is set up, this game is just so fun to play, and visually it just looks so nice. And for it to just run on 30 and not experience that 60 smooth frames, to see somewhat of not the best model and textures throughout the game, it's sort of disappointing to see, and I would love to see this game at its full potential. Another thing of the game, the thing is, I don't really have any complaints because this is almost a perfect game for me. I really just love everything about this game, the way it's designed, and I probably missed out on a lot of things to talk about with how the game is designed. So comment down below as well how you guys feel about with its game design. I probably missed a lot in this like first impressions video. So comment down below like what's your favorite thing of this game in terms of its gameplay. Would love to hear your guys' opinions on that as well. It just hit me. I actually have one complaint with its gameplay, and it's the Korok seeds. I think I only bumped into one Korok where it was a little mini game of shooting the hot air balloons, but other than that, every single Korok seed I see in every corner of the map or the area, like within 50 meters from me, to build like a whole car or just escort them to their friends, it's honestly getting annoying because of how it just interrupts my adventure. I don't mind doing it time to time, but the fact that I see these seeds every single corner I go to, it's honestly getting a bit irritating, and it came to the point where I did somewhat ignore a few. And the fact that it's irritating to me is because I feel inclined to always do it. I don't memorize where all these Korok seeds are at, so it's just better to receive the Korok seed from them at that time and and do their little escort mission or build their transportation or whatever, so I could just get my reward and dip and never come back to that area or whatever, because just backtracking and trying to find all the seeds would be a nightmare to do. So and it's also the fact that it takes a lot of time to build these things, because I'm not gonna say, even though I praise the Ultra Hand a lot, the building in this game is not the greatest. You're gonna have your moments where it's just frustrating to build because it's not really corresponding with how it is. It gets a bit clunky time to time, but again, it works and you get used to it over time. So yeah, but I think other than that, so far, again, I haven't really completed everything with this game. Again, I feel like I'm still in the beginning sections, right? Even though I passed tutorial, there's still a lot of things I need to discover and see. And with shrines, from what I've experienced, or just puzzles overall, they actually been very, very simple to do. It's just that when I feel like a puzzle or a challenge is hard, it's just because I'm not thinking outside the box enough. I think people will struggle playing this game if they're not using their creativity. I hate to say that, but using creativity is one of the greatest benefits of this game, and it's why I like playing this game, because I do like being creative on what I do to approach certain things in the game, or whether I'm creating a structure, a building, a transportation. I have fun with it, but it may be a problem for people who just want to play the game without, using their sense of creativity. And for those who tend to struggle with creativity, my best advice is just simply try. Just try and see what is the best solution for you, because again, there's no right way of playing this game. Oh, I actually do have a little critique on its combat system, and I'm talking about the melee combat. And when we're talking about combat, we're excluding the abilities that you can do and the combinations of weapons and all this other stuff. We're just talking about the melee combat. I wish the combat was much different from Breath of the Wild, and with Breath of the Wild, it's basically the same melee combat system from, how long has it been? Maybe it's been 2 decades at least 2 decades. So I wish it was sort of changed up. I wish I wish it was much more prioritized with melee combat, where we're able to actually combo, do some cool moves. I'm not asking for like a Devil May Cry or like a straight up like a Super Smash Bros, but I'm asking just to change up the melee combat somehow and also make it a bit more satisfying to do. I would love to see different movesets from Link, even though he technically does have different movesets, but again, it would be nice to really just add more onto it and sort of focus on how the melee combat is at. I would love to see that, but again, this game's strong suit and what it really prioritizes is, just like any Zelda game, is the puzzles, the exploration, and all the other stuff other than the combat. It's not all about the combat when it comes to this game, but the combat is actually good enough, and I would love a Zelda game made by the first party devs where they actually try to do focus on the action. That would be amazing. But I think that's pretty much all I have to say, other than I love how this game expresses creativity and how you could utilize it to your advantages in the game. I think it's very healthy for the human mind, for us to experience all this and be rewarded and really just give out everyone's creations a chance. I just love that of this game. So big shout out to Nintendo for giving us players for and rewarding us for this satisfaction that they could give within a Zelda game. And the fact that it is a Zelda game is 2 times better. So comment down below how you guys feel about a game. Remember, drop a like. Also, if you're new to the channel, remember to subscribe. I'll probably make a follow-up video once I beat the game, so stay tuned for that. And next month, FF16, here we come. But we're going to be busy playing Tears of the Kingdom, so follow me on Twitch as well if you haven't yet. I'm trying to stream all my stuff on Twitch, my playthroughs, so visit me on there, say what's up. I would love to see you guys on there. But anyway, peace off. Have a great day, and we out. Let's play more Zelda.